Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So this is a long overdue guide on the Archer. So this is mainly a PvE guide. I'm probably gonna make a PvE one later on when I'm better at PvP. But since I'm good at PvE, I'm gonna start with a PvE guide first. So let's go straight into the guide. I'm gonna start from the basics, and then we're gonna go to the more advanced stuff later on. So it's more of an in-depth guide to it. So what I wanted to talk about first is the skill point allocation, because I'm assuming most people are probably new at Archer. They probably don't have this many skill points. So I'm gonna reset everything, and then I'm gonna show you guys the priority of what skills are better, what you need to prioritize. I'm assuming you will probably have 1,000 skill points or something like that. So for Archer, the first thing you wanna do is you wanna place your skills on your awakening skills. Okay, because your Archer has no succession. We all know that. It only has awakening, which is called ascension. So we're gonna put points first into awakening, and then I'm going to explain what each of these skills do. So if you're just starting up, this is level 56 or level 60 or whatever, you have a few skill points. You want to max out, let me unlock this first. You want to max out your passives, okay, of course. Then you want to max out radiant explosion, max out full bloom, get grand boom, get this uproot, light trail. This is the thing about awakening, guys. All skills in awakening for Archer are completely useful. You may skip piercing light for now, okay? If you don't have the points, you can skip piercing light completely, okay? But if you have the points, then max it out. Get the Zephyr Rip, get the tactical strike, get the Mark Bloom, get the Glissade. You can skip Shadebound. Sorry, get that. You can skip Shadebound if you want for now, but you're gonna get it eventually. And then for your core skills, we're going to talk about this later on in the guide. Mountain Breeze has a prerequisite in the main one. Okay, so let's go to the main skill. So right now we have used about what? Maybe 400 points. So we still have a lot to go, right? So for your pre-awakening, let's take the absolute must-haves first, okay? So let's max out Meteor Dive, okay? We're gonna take Piercing Cry. We're gonna skip these ones, okay? You're gonna take Wind Strike, okay? Then you're gonna skip Wrath of Nature. This is assuming you don't have enough points, okay? Don't think I'm saying the skill is completely trash. I'm just saying we are going with the priority. We're using a prioritization like kind of a system, right? So Earth Shatter, you wanna take that as well, absolutely. And then Sunfall, then Bolt of Radiance. You can skip this though, but you should take it. And then Arrow Explosion is a must-have. You must take that. Double Tap. If you do not have this skill on your Archer, it means you have not completed your Magnus quest. This is a skill you get only after you complete your Magnus quest. So if you don't have this skill, don't panic. You get this skill when you complete your Magnus quest. It's the abyssal skill that every class gets once they have done that quest. Secondary skills, you can actually skip everything here if you don't have enough points. If you don't have enough points, this is the last things you want to put your points into. So I'm going to skip all of that for now for the purpose of the guide. And then you want to go to your passives and you want to max out all these passives, okay? The weight training passive is the last one you get once you have gotten everything in your skill tree. This just increases weight of your character. So it's like a last thing. They just put it there so that people can have something to do with their leftover skill points, okay? So once you have this set up the way it is right now, so I've just skipped things that are not very necessary. Covering fire, we need to get it, okay? Now, Piercing Cry is the prerequisite needed so that we can get this Mountain Breeze. So make sure you get this so that you can get this. You need this. It's a really good iframe for your PvE and PvP as well. So this is how you need it. You see how many skill points I have left? So Archer doesn't need a lot of skill points to be sufficient. So with the skill points left, now you can start putting them in things, your LMB, your Wrath of Nature, get the passives, the press passives, get the Storm of Light. Some of these are completely useless, you'll never use them, for example these ones, but we'll talk about that pretty soon when I'm giving a small breakdown of all of these skills. And Awakening, get the Shadebound, okay, and then get your core skill, whatever it is. Now I've taken all of the skills. Is there any skill I'm missing? I've taken everything except the weight training, and that is how much we have spent. We have spent around 1,000. We spent around 1,000 points to get everything that we need in terms of combat. So you see, you don't need that many points. And then the leftover points, I'm going to put them in weight because I'm a Giga Chad and I've maxed out my skill points. I have everything taken. So that's about it when it comes to skill allocation. Let's take that out of the way. So let's go to the breakdown of each and every one of these skills. I'm gonna go really fast because some of them don't really need an explanation, but there's a few of them that can be confusing for people who are starting out with Archer, and that's what I'm gonna spend some time explaining. So let's go skill by skill. Let's do this really fast, right? Spirit Arrow, this is your LMB, self-explanatory, nothing special about it. Has a stiffness though if you wanna mess around in PvP, but it's completely protected, never use it in PvP, just like that. Piercing Cry is a movement skill, LMB. You cannot use it on its own, you have to combo with other skills. So a few ways to combo your Piercing Cry is either with Glide. So you can glide LMB, glide. It has no cooldown as well, so you can just use it as much as you like. You can also combo it with Meteor Dive. Meteor Dive, and then LMB, Meteor Dive, LMB, Meteor Dive, LMB. So that's Piercing Cry, right? Meteor Dive is what I've showed you, space bar. This is it. Meteor Dive is one of the skills that you use to cancel like so many of your skills. Can be used after almost any skill on Archer. It has nice distance to it. If it is off cooldown, it has a super armor as well, so it's pretty good for PvE. Covering Fire. This is AD. D at the same time, A and F at the same time. It can be used in a combo, but I personally do not use it because I find it's just giving me some extra APM actions that I have to do. That's not really necessary because the damage is not that big of a deal to a point where if I don't do it in a combo, I feel like I'm doing something wrong. But if you wanna be fancy, if you wanna some variations in your combo, you can use it. It's not a bad skill. Storm of Light. Storm of Light is I don't really use the skill. So what this skill does is it gives you a buff, right? It gives you a buff. So you see it says knocked. So what this buff does is every time you do anything on your pre-awakening, you can press Q and it's gonna do one attack from the knock. And this buff is a really long buff, it's a 3-minute buff. So anytime you do glide, you can Q, glide, Q, ensnare, Q, meteor dive, Q. So that's all it does, nothing else. That's all it does. The thing is, you cannot use this on your awakening. This is not usable on awakening. It's only in your pre-awakening. It does very bad damage as well, so I don't use this skill at all. That's why I have it locked. I remove it in my quick slot and I forget that skill even exists. So forget about that. Just assume it doesn't exist. Wing Strike. Wing Strike is your normal direction with left click. Any direction with left click, forward, left, right. It's a really nice skill. Gives you a lot of movement, but it spends a lot of stamina, so you have to keep in mind that you cannot just spam it completely because it's gonna finish up your stamina and you're probably gonna die. An archer with no stamina is a dead archer. It's as simple as that. So yeah, you can use this to reposition. Nothing much to the skill. That's all it does. Okay. Let's get the next one. Wrath of Nature. Wrath of Nature, it's not really something you can use on its own. You have to quick slot it because it kind of conflicts with double tap. We'll talk about double tap in a few. So Wrath of Nature is not a bad skill. It's not really a bad skill, but it has a charging. The main thing I would think you would use the Wrath of Nature for is for the healing passive that you get, the Breath Recover, which gives you 300 HP. But other than that, yeah, I really don't use this skill at all. I don't use this skill at all. It has super armor, so if you need some extra super armor, you can incorporate this somehow, maybe in boss splits. But yeah, it's another skill where in my quick slot, I just remove it, I lock it, and I forget that that skill exists. Because the 300 HP, although it's not that bad, there's better ways of getting more HP, okay? Earth Shatter. Earth Shatter is a staple skill. I use this in my combos, does really good damage. But it is not the skill itself that I absolutely love. It is the combo that you can do with Sunfall that makes this skill a really good skill. So when Sunfall is off cooldown, I'm gonna put in the just to see the cooldown on it. If Sunfall is off cooldown and then you use Absolute Earth Shatter, it's gonna automatically cast Sunfall. Sunfall can be casted on its own via quick slot, but the problem is, where is it? The problem is you get this animation. Do you see this casting animation? Yeah, you get that weird casting animation, which can feel very clunky. However, when you cast Earth Shatter, it auto casts Sunfall to look something like this, and you get the Sunfall effect. So that's the reason why Earth Shatter is a really good skill. I always use this skill anytime it's off cooldown or anytime I see Sunfall is off cooldown. So I usually make sure in my cooldown slots that I have Sunfall at least in one of my cooldown slots so that I can see every time it's off cooldown, and I use Earth Shatter to automatically cast it because the combo of those two does absolutely good, beautiful damage. Okay. So let's go to the next one. Bolt of Radiance. This is just a pure DPS skill. It does okay-ish damage, but I mostly don't use it because it has like this charging animation. So if I'm in the middle of mobs and I'm like, you know, in my group, I don't usually use it. But if I have some free time to cast it, I can do it. But most of the time I don't use it. But I don't lock it. It's available. It's easy to do it, and it flows nicely with the arrow explosion. Okay. So let's go to arrow explosion. This is your tier 3 Addons skill. I usually have it on my quick slot. It never moves from there. It's a quick skill, can be done from awakening. So it's an easy way of swapping to your pre-awakening. And you can put tier 3 Addons on this skill. Has a short cooldown as well. Does beautiful damage. Has a really big AoE. So yeah, there's no reason to not use that skill. Double tap. Double tap is your abyssal skill. You get this from the Magnus. It does beautiful damage, and I always have it quick slotted. Why? Because double tap uses Shift Q as the command shortcut, and Shift Q or anything with Q conflicts with a lot of things on Archer. That's one thing you need to know. So if I tell you to lock something, there's a reason why. It's because if you press Q with something else, there's a chance you're going to do the wrong skill and not the one you want. So you always want double tap locked and in a quick slot. And I'll explain why in a bit. But other than that, it's a beautiful skill, does really good damage. You should always use it off cooldown when you get the chance. Secondary skills. So secondary skill looks like there's so much going on here, but let me start from the bottom and then just work our way up. Down, going up, right? Gap in Darkness, this is a PVE guide, right? You need to forget that anything from here to here exists. Like this entire thing is completely useless. Gap in Darkness have some users because it has a stiffness CC and some forward guard. You can use this in maybe boss rush, because there's some boss rushes that need you to stiffen the bosses, blah blah blah, things like that. But other than that, it's completely useless. Earth kick this entire thing, you see all of these skills, you think, oh, I'm gonna press in things. These are all completely useless. These are just some Bruce Lee kicks. Bruce Lee kick, Jackie Chan kick, some other kicks, like completely unprotected, very low damage. I mean, some has like some KDs, but they're very slow to do. They are very unprotected and they do very low damage. So I lock all of this skill and I forget that they even exist. Gaping Darkness, I always lock it, but sometimes I unlock this and I put it in my quick slot just to do like a quick stiffness in a boss if I need to. But that's the only time I use it, right? So forget about Earthquake completely. Gaping Darkness, don't forget about it completely, but just keep it close to your heart because sometimes it will help you. Then let's go to Glide. Glide is your normal shift, your normal glide. It's just a nice movement skill. You can use this. It's a beautiful skill. Low cooldown, super armor. This is nice, self-explanatory. And then Zephyr Rip. It's another movement skill. Shift down, shift down. It is spammable, no cooldown, but you only get the super armor on the first cast. When you do it on cooldown, you don't get the super armor. Okay. Ensnare. Ensnare is your first pre-buff on Archer. It gives you a flat 30% crit rate for 10 seconds. This buff is so long, you'll always have it 100% of the time if you cast Ensnare every time it's off cooldown. So it's something to keep in mind. It's 30% crit. So you'll always basically have 100% crit chance with Archer on all of your skills if you keep this buff active at all times. And it also has a super armor, so something to keep in note. It's pretty good for PvE. Evasion, you always lock this skill. This is actually a skill you lock in every class in the game. There's no class in the game that you actually ever use this evasion. It's basically the worst version of Glide. It's either you do this or you do this. Maybe you want to do the roly-polies. Maybe you want to do the Dark Soul roly-polies. And if you do, then all power to you. And then let's talk about Breath of Spirit. So Breath of Spirit is an easy skill, but it has so much going on that it kind of confuses a lot of people, right? So to use Breath of Spirit, you have to have it in a quick slot first of all. By default, you don't even ever have to touch this skill like at all. By default, it is set basically in an optimal way. But if you want to understand what the skill does, that's what I'm going to explain to you right now, okay? So Breath of Spirit has 3 effects on it. 1, it can either heal you for some HP. 2, it can either give you a stunning effect, a 50% chance to stun people. Or 3, it can debuff your enemies by movement speed and attack or casting speed. Now, what effect you want, you're the one who gets to choose. So when you press the Breath of Spirit from your quick slot, you can choose the effect you want. If you look at the hand of your character, it has a color on it. So for now, it's green. Green means I've chosen the recovery effect. So when I press the Breath of Spirit, and then I press A, that means I choose the recovery one. And then my hand will glow green, right? If I want the stun, then I press the Breath again, but this time instead of A, I press S. And then now this one is a stun effect. There's a 50% chance to stun. If I press the Breath again, Breath of Spirit, and then I press D, this is now the debuff one. You see my hand now glows white. That is the thing. Now how do you do the effect? Is you just press E. So the E throws out like a bomb. Like a bomb thingy, right? Has a 12-second cooldown, throws a bomb. So if that bomb hits somebody there, they get that movement speed debuff because I've selected the white thingy. If I select the healing one with A and my hand glows green, I've selected the recovery one. Means if I have like some allies there and then I throw them the bomb, boom, it heals people there for 500 HP. That's basically the idea of the skill. Most people just put it at recovery and leave it at that. But if you want to do PvE, you can swap it to the stun one. And then you can like try and like do some stun thingies. It never really works, but sometimes it's nice to like troll and have some fun, right? That's the idea of Breath of Spirit. So it's not very complicated once you get it. So that's the thing. There's another flow to it, the steady breath. Steady breath also depends on what you chose for the breath of spirit. So if you chose the healing one, the steady breath will give you a DP buff when you use this skill. Let me put it on the 5 bar. So steady breath, and has a nice iframe, so I use this for the iframe mainly, not really for the buffs. Okay, so if I have the healing one and then I use the steady breath, it will give me a DP buff. So for example, let me choose the healing, that's the recover one. If I use steady breath, I'm supposed to get a DP buff. No, I'm supposed to heal, not a DP buff, sorry. They have put this inside out. I'm supposed to heal for 300 HP when I use the skill. When I use the stun, which is S, which is 4, and then S, and then I do steady breath, it's gonna give me an AP, ranged AP buff plus 12. If I put this on the movement speed debuff one, which is 4 and then D, then I use this, I get the DP buff, right? So it's up to you to figure out what you want, but don't really use this for the AP buff because it's a better way of applying that AP buff, and I'll show you that eventually. So this for now, for if you want to simplify your Archer gameplay, just put it on recover, which is A, and then just remove this on your quick slot and forget that that skill exists. Just remove it in the quick slot. You can keep it. You can keep the steady breath there just for the emergency iframe, and it's gonna heal you when you do it. So it's not bad. Okay. That's it for that one. I hope that's clear. If you have any questions about any of the skills, just ask me in the comments, and I'm pretty sure I'll answer every question down there. So I think that's about it for the main hunt, right? So passives. Like any other class, you want to get all the possible passives that you can get. Skip the weight train passive until you have maxed out everything, and then every other point that you have, you can now start putting it in your weight. This one are your normal Z buffs and emergency escape that every class has. It will always be active by default anyway. So let's go to Awakening. Awakening is where a lot will be going on. Every skill in Awakening is useful. There is no useless skill in Awakening, but there's better skills than others, of course. So let's start with the normal great bow. This is your C swap. You can use this to swap from Awakening to pre-Awakening. It's pretty easy. If you put a command before C, for example, you hold D and C, you're gonna get a quick swap. However, if you see, you get this, especially if you see on Awakening to pre-Awakening without a movement, you get this very long animation. So make sure you use a movement button to see, so that you don't get the long animation. Okay, but you very rarely have to see swap, but because Archer has so many swaps within his kit. Watcher skill is your E buff that other classes have. Ours is not an E buff, it's an Q buff. So first thing about Watcher is you want to lock this skill. You definitely want to lock this skill. Why? Because it uses Q as the command. And like, remember I told you guys about Q with double tap? There's so many, there's shift key Q here, there's shift Q here, there's another Q here, there's another Q here. So there's so much going on with the letter Q that you'll be pressing Q and you'll do the wrong thing. And you don't want to use your Q buff when you don't need it, because it's a 3-minute cooldown buff. So you don't want to waste the skill. So this is a skill you always lock and put it somewhere in your hotbar, and you're going to be using from your hotbar to get that buff. A really beautiful buff, really strong buff. You want to use it off cooldown in PvE when you're grinding those beautiful spots like Ox. Really good damage. Righteous Fire is just a passive. So with Righteous Fire, the thing is, how it works is it puts a debuff on mobs, like a damage over time on mobs for 9 seconds. So this skill can be a godsend, but it can also be it can betray you at times, because what this skill does, it gives a debuff on mobs. You see this debuff here? So for example, if you hit some mobs farther away, they have this debuff and it does damage to them. So sometimes it will pull a pack that you don't really want to pull to you, right? But it can also be a good thing because that means when you kill this pack and they reduce in number, since that pack has the debuff, it will pull them automatically to you. So it's not a bad thing as well. So it has its pros and cons, I guess. But that's the idea behind Righteous Fire, right? It's all. You don't really notice the damage, but it's okay. It's okay. I wouldn't complain. This is your LMB. Yeah, just a normal skill. If you don't have an infinite mana pot and you run out of mana, just do 2 or 3 basic attacks and you'll be full mana. It's pretty easy. It's pretty easy as a self-explanatory. Light's Path. Light's Path is your RMB. This is another pre-buff skill that you're going to be using. This one gives you an AP buff. This one gives you a 10 AP buff once you use it. The good thing about this skill is it may look clunky at first, but you need to understand that you can cancel this animation with basically almost anything on your kit. So you can RMB into that, RMB into any other skill. So it's a really easy thing to cancel. So you can always have that buff active, right? So you always want to use that. It's a really nice buff. You want to do that before you start any combo. Elvia's Anti-Arrow, this is your weapon buff skill. When you get the weapon buff, sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. I find it is very long to do all of this. I just wish it was just one boom and a burst damage, because sometimes I feel like it's slow, but it does beautiful damage. Yeah, you can use it every time you get a weapon in Elvia. Radiant Explosion. This is your first main DPS skill on Archer. You want to use this off cooldown. It's beautiful skill, does good damage, huge AoE, and one of the best things about the skill is it reduces DP of the mobs. Now, if you look at the mob, you see it is very heavily debuffed. The reason why it's very debuffed is because of my skill Addons, which I'll explain to you later on. But yeah, it makes this skill extremely beautiful. It's an S tier skill on Archer. Then let's go to the next one, Full Bloom. Let me explain Full Bloom. Full Bloom can be an easy skill when you look at it. Looks just pretty easy skill. However, it has 2 layers to it. So if you look at Full Bloom, look at the arrows. I want you to look at the arrows, right? So, oops, I hit somebody. Sorry. So Full Bloom has a high range. But if the arrows are like really fat, I hope this guy doesn't come and kill me. If the arrows are fat like that, it means just next to you, like here, just in front of you, no damage is going to be applied on the cone in front of you. All the damage is only on the arrows that go out. So the damage will be on those arrows. Okay? That is now Grand Bloom. If you want to get Full Bloom, you just have to lock Grand Bloom. You can't have them both active at the same time. Okay? I hope you understand that. So if you want Full Bloom, you have to lock Grand Bloom. And then Full Bloom looks almost the same, but there's a small difference that I want you to notice. So when you do the Grand Bloom now, the Full Bloom, it looks like this. The arrows become thinner. I hope you've noticed that. They become way thinner. However, look in front of your archer, look at the cone that it creates. See that cone? See that effect? So this means these arrows do almost 0 damage if they hit anything. Almost 0 damage. All the damage is concentrated on the front of your archer. So it becomes like a melee skill. So you just go to a pack of mobs and then you go hug them, boom, boom. You get a full skill, boom, boom. But if you do it on range, it's not really gonna hit anything. If you wanna hit things on range, you swap it to Gram, because when you unlock this, you're basically disabling this, and then you go to Gram Bloom. And this one will hit everything in. It's a beautiful skill. When you have a weapon in Alvia, you just do boom, boom. All of the packs there die. It's a huge AoE, huge damage. but that's the idea between the two skills. So you're going to be swapping between them according to the situation. You'll see me in any of my videos. If you watch any of my videos, I lock this and I unlock them according to what I want. You can always do this even in combat, so it's pretty easy to do it. Okay, next, Spear of Sylvia. So Spear of Sylvia used to be a melee skill. If people who play Archer before remember, this used to be a melee skill. It was changed. So now it's a Shift Q, you get this effect, then you boom, you shoot an arrow. Low cooldown, really good damage, but it has this charging animation. Now, you don't want to be ever using this skill on its own like this. You see that duration when you're doing the charging? That's one of the easier way for you to die. And as an archer, you don't want to be standing still doing charging things like that. So there's a few ways of cancelling that, and I'll show you pretty soon when I talk about the next skill. So let me jump a little bit. Let me jump to Marked Bloom. Let me jump to Marked Bloom so that we can talk about Spear of Sylvia, right? So Marked Bloom, let me swap it here. Marked Bloom before used to be part of a flow for Full Bloom, but a few patches ago they changed that to make this a skill on its own. So Marked Bloom is your hardest hitting skill on your kit. It hits the hardest. It's one of the longest range skills in the game, and it does a beautiful damage. Huge AoE, huge damage, low cooldown. It's a skill you'll be using off cooldown all the time. Now, when you look at Spear of Sylvia, like I said, you don't want to be casting it on its own, but it has a really good combo where when you combo it with Marked Bloom, so you do Marked Bloom and then you press Q. So my Marked Bloom is always on a quick slot because I like using it on a quick slot. It's kind of easy on my hands. So I Marked Bloom and then Q, and then you'll notice your Spear of Sylvia casts immediately without the charging animation. So Marked Bloom in Q, and you get Spear of Sylvia. There's a second way of casting Spear of Sylvia, which is using double tap. So you can also do double tap, boom, boom, and then Q, you get your Spear of Sylvia. You see? It's pretty cool. It flows really beautifully, and you don't have that weird charging animation, okay? So that's it. So that's Marked Bloom, okay? You wanna use it off cooldown. Then we have Mountain Breeze. Mountain Breeze is just a movement skill. Forward F, and you get that it's a iframe into a super armor. So you use that for according to the situation, iframe or super armor or just normal movement. So you need to be careful about using this because it's an 8-second cooldown, and you probably need that invisible frame, right? Approach. So approach is a pretty cool skill. First of all, it looks really cool. Looks really cool. The reason why I have mine on super armor is because I have the core skill unlocked, but let me turn this off for now. So approach looks like this. Now normally you can cancel it because it's a 2-part skill, but you can cancel only the first part. But if you hold the command, you're gonna do both parts, and you're gonna get a lot of distance back, right? So if that's when you hold, you go back. Now the reason why I use this skill a lot, mainly I only use the first part because the first part does good damage, and you can use it to cancel other skills, which I'm going to talk about later in a few, right? So let's go to the next skill. Light's Trail. Light's Trail is just a flow. So you're gonna be using it for many things. It's just an F flow. It's just an F flow. There's not much to it. Just some extra filler damage that you can be using, right? Righteous Might. Righteous Might is a big burst. It's a big burst. However, it's a 20-second cooldown. You can cast it on its own if you quick slot it though. If you quick slot it, you can cast it on its own. But it has some weird animation if you're trying to do that. So normally you want to do it with using your Light Trail or F or any other combo. It's a 20-second cooldown, so it's a long cooldown skill. The damage is okay. It's not too big, too much damage to think that because it's a 20-second cooldown, it's gonna kill things in one shot. But it does okay damage. I usually use it sometimes if I feel, if I feel fancy enough. But If you want to do it, you can press F and then just hold F. So just F, hold F, you're going to cast. That's all. Just press F. If you want to do Righteous Might, press F. Simple as that. It's either F or RMB. You can also do RMB. You can do uproot into RMB into RMB. You do this entire line. So you can like uproot and then hold RMB, and then you're gonna do, it's not off cooldown. You're gonna do the Righteous Might. That's about it, right? So Luthagon's Call. Luthagon's Call is another DPS skill, one of your main DPS skill. It has a charging, a really long charging animation, but it does amazing damage, and it's also really long range, very long range. However, you don't have to do the charging animation on the skill. There's ways to cancel this charging animation. The first way to cancel this is using your low sweep. So low sweep is just F. It's just F, nothing much to it. But when you F and then shift RMB immediately, you're going to cancel the charging of Luthagons, and it's going to go out immediately like this. So there's no charging animation. It goes out, boom, immediately. There's another way of doing it using uproot. Like I said, I use uproot to cancel things, which is used to cancel Luthagons a lot. So I do uproot into the thing. So down F into shift RMB. That's it. It comes out really fast, really fast. That's the thing with lookup. So you want to use this again every time of cooldown. Now, the second skill, Echoes of the Call. Echoes of the Call used to be a melee skill before. It used to be called Ravenous Talon, but they changed that a couple of patches ago as well. So basically now Archer is full range. He used to have 2 melee skills, but they were removed and now have range skills. Echoes of the Call, you want to use this every time you use your Luthagon's Call. You just hold RMB. When you cancel your thing, shift RMB, hold RMB, you do it. Simple as that, nothing much. Just hold the RMB. There's nothing, you cannot cast it on its own. You cannot cast it on its own. It has to flow through Luthagon's Call. That's about it. Piercing Light. Piercing Light, first of all, it has a tier 3 add-on, which can make the skill pretty good. However, it has this weird, it must be charged a little bit before you let it go. So you can like just press it and then boom, but it still has that lingering animation at the start and at the end, which makes the skill So I rarely use it. The only time I use it is mainly in maybe boss blades, and I need this long super armor so I can just sit there, because this super armor is super long. As long as you have stamina, you're gonna have this super armor, so you can use it to cheese some of boss mechanics in boss blades. But apart from that, I don't use it that much. The damage is not super good to a point where you feel like you're missing something if you don't use it. So use that at your own leisure if you feel like it. Okay, let's go to the next one. Ultimate Zephyrip is just the normal Zephyrip, like this one, the one for pre-awakening. All it does, it makes you use it using your great bow. That's all it does. There's nothing special about that. It's just a movement skill. So looks pretty cool. So that's about it. Low sweep, like I said, that's your F. Is used to cancel so many things. Okay. Shadebound Beam. This is mainly a PvP thing, something for Node Wars. I have trolled a little bit with this in maybe Guyfins with a party when they're like fighting a mob like there. I just chill on the back and then I just boom, boom, boom. It's not like I'm doing super good damage, but it looks fun. It looks really fun. But apart from that, that's just about it. It actually does good damage though. Don't underestimate the skill. In Node Wars, it does really good damage. In PvE, if you're alone, you'll never use it. But if you're in a group, you can have some fun with it. But that's about it. You have to quick slot it and then do it like that. So it's a fun skill. Very high range as well. Very high range as well. It has a really high range. You see? So you can have some fun. That's why it's so good in Node Wars. Okay. Tactical Strike. It's your left RMB. It has an iframe. It's a very long iframe. but it has a long cooldown, so you cannot spam it. The iframe has a cooldown, I mean, but the skill itself has no cooldown. So you can use this to get the iframe in PvE, especially with bosses. That's about it. Mark Bloom, you've talked about Mark Bloom. Glissade is a skill that gives you the AP buff that I talked about with, remember me saying about Steady Breath, gives you the 12 AP. So Glissade gives you the exact same buff, but an easier way of applying it, because Glissade is just forward RMB, and you do Glissade and you get the buff. See, simple as that. Doesn't have all of those things that Steady Breath makes you do. So it's a staple skill on your Awakening. It's very easy to do it. It flows really well with your combos, and how that buff can be on 100% of the time. You can use Glissade to basically start off your combos and do other things, right? When it comes to core skills, there's 3 skills that I would suggest you to do. I would suggest putting super armor on your uproot. I like this one a lot, because as you can see, uproot is such a long skill. I have to unlock this to learn it. It's such a long skill. Like you'll get super armor in the entire animation, and then it's gonna linger at the end. So let me show you. When you uproot, it's gonna go and you land. It lingers for like a second when you're doing the small bounce back, right? So that's why I like the super armor on the uproot. Sometimes I put it on full bloom if I feel like it. It's not a bad skill, because now you'd get the forward guard on full bloom, but only when it's off cooldown. So that's another way of doing it. Or you can have it on Spear of Sylvia, because if you do Mark Bloom into Spear of Sylvia, it is a very long unprotected animation. However, you can get forward guard on the second one. So you can do this, and then you get the forward guard when you're doing the Spear of Sylvia. But that's again preference. It depends on, that's a very personal choice. But when it comes to this, it's Spear of Sylvia, full bloom, or uproot. Those are the 3 main things. The others are they're not that good. Radiant can be good for PvP, because it gives the skill a knockdown, which can be good. It helps sometimes. But the core uproot, I think, is the best choice. I think that's the best choice. And I think that's it when it comes to the skills. Oh wait, we need to talk about the skill enhancements. So skill enhancements. This is a page where I don't really use much of this. Okay. Skill enhancements. When it comes to the first one, Radiant Storm, I don't use that skill. It's so slow. Deadly Explosion, I don't use that skill. It's so strong. It's so slow, I mean. But just because I have to choose something, I choose Deadly Explosion. Just because it has a KD, I never really use it. But sometimes in PvP, when you need a knockdown, because this is a PvE mini guide anyway. In PvE, I choose it, but I never use it. I choose it, but I never use it. When it comes to the second choice, I choose Radiant Snare. The reason, because it has a super armor and it's very fast to cast it. Boom. And it has a nice debuff if you want to do some PvP with it. This one is slow. Has a forward guard though, it's not bad, but it's For Earth Shatter, this is a very personal preference. It's a very personal preference. You can get the Earth Judgment, because it's like gives you like a knockback. It knocks you back and then knocks the enemy there. In PvE, it just knocks you back and gives you a forward guard. But for me, I like Nature Shattering Arrow, because it's super fast and it actually does really good damage. Yeah, it actually does really good damage. It's not a very bad skill, and it combos well with other things. So I choose usually my Nature Shattering Arrow is what I use mostly. So you can do this and then straight into that and then do something else. It does good damage. It actually does really good damage. And look at all these debuffs on that. Oof, poor Scarecrow. And yeah, that's about it about the skill enhancements. So I think next we need to talk about the add-ons that I use, right? Because I think we need to talk about add-ons before I talk about the combos. So this is my add-ons I use. Add-ons are usually a very personal preference kind of a thing, but there's a few things I can talk about how I've made my add-ons, and then you guys can get an idea of the kind of gameplay I go for, right? So the first one, which I think everyone will be using, is Arrow Explosion, which is your main hand skill. Arrow Explosion, here it is. It's a tier 3 add-on, so you want to put your strongest skill add-on that you can get, which is usually the monster AP 30 and attack speed 10%. So this skill, a really huge AoE, so it's gonna debuff a lot of mobs. It's not gonna debuff. If you wanna put, some people put minus DP on it because of the debuff, because of the big AoE, right? Uproot, I use Uproot a lot to cancel Gluthagons, so I usually like to put that accuracy and crit rate on the Uproot. I'm gonna remove the crit rate eventually because there's a reason why. Archer skills have something in common. When you look at the main skills, look at Radiant Explosion. It has a 100% crit rate, right? Spear of Sylvia, 100% crit rate. Gluthagons, 100% crit rate. Even piercing light is 50%, but I don't usually use this. Righteous Smite doesn't have a crit rate. Also, Echoes doesn't have a crit rate. But Mark Bloom is 100% crit rate. And I think also the Absolute Arrow is 100%. Yeah, 100% crit rate. So the only 3 skills that doesn't have 100% crit rate is Sunfall, Earth Shatter, Righteous Smite, and Echoes. Those are the few skills that don't have 100% crit rate. But if you keep using your Ensnare, your number 2, I have it on my quick slot. You have to put a quick slot anyway for this skill. If you keep using this and you get the 30% crit rate, those skills will always crit. Yeah, so Archer is more of a 100% crit rate class. So this is, sometimes I just put it there just to make sure I have 100% crit rate, right? Gluthagons Call, this skill goes through all mobs, that's why I have the DP there, and it has a plus 35 HP per hit. So that's why I've increased it by an extra 10 to give it 45 HP per hit. And if I'm low on HP and I use this skill, sometimes I heal all the way to full. So that's why I usually have it. And it also does a lot of hits. So yeah, it's a really good skill for healing up, and does good damage as well. Radiant Explosion, I put a DP debuff on this skill. The skill on its own has a DP debuff, minus 15. The thing about the add-on is it stacks. If the skill has a DP debuff, you can stack a DP add-on debuff on the skill, and it's gonna stack on the effect. So you'll have a minus 30 DP debuff when you use that one skill. That's why I have the debuffs on the Radiant Explosion. That's why when I use this skill on mobs, oh, sorry, I used the BSR one. The normal one, boom. You see all of these debuffs? Those are DP debuff, and an evasion debuff. That's why you see all of these. That's only from one skill, and it's off cooldown again. So I can always have these mobs debuff 100% of the time. So anytime I'm fighting a mob, it will always have 30 debuff minus and an evasion debuff, which means I don't have to worry so much about accuracy as well. Glissade, I put accuracy and crit hit damage on this. This is because I always use Glissade to get my AP debuff. So it's more of a working to make sure I'm usually fully buffed almost all the time, right? So Glissade, boom, and I get crit rate, I get a ranged AP, and I get some accuracy, right? Some attack speed, I mean. Some accuracy. Mark Bloom, some monster AP, some attack speed. This is because Mark Bloom is usually part of my combo. So anytime I have my tier 3 add-on run out, I will always reset it with this, and I'll always reset this one with the tier 3 one. So I'll always have this AP against monster active 100% of the time. Sometimes it's the tier 3 one, sometimes it's the tier 2 one, but that's the idea of the add-ons. So you can copy this the way it is, and you can, the thing about add-ons, you can swap out the add-ons according to how you are doing your combo, right? So I'm going to show you my combos that I do using these add-ons. Okay, so when it comes to combos, like any other class, you always have your pre-buff ritual. Every class has a pre-buff ritual. So For Archer is an RMB as your first pre-buff. Just a quick RMB. This will give you 10 AP. See? RMB, 10 AP, the skill has no cooldown, and this buff will always be refreshed every time you RMB. So it's a skill, you're going to have it 100% of the time. True. The second thing after RMB is you want to do Ensnare. So RMB into Ensnare, and now you have 10 AP and 30% crit rate. This is a combo that you can have on 100% of the time as well. Those are two buffs you'll always have. So what do you do after you do your Ensnare, right? So you have a few options. So you can RMB Ensnare into Glissade. The reason why you do that is now look at all those buffs. You have crit rate buff, you have crit damage buff, you have accuracy rate, you have AP, and you have crit. You have nothing else that you need. You are ready to go all crazy on them. You can, however, skip Glissade if you feel it's a bit clunky, but since you will be in Awakening, in pre-Awakening, now you can do your tier 3 add-on, and then you can now blast with any skill you want, right? So the combo will look like this: RMB into Ensnare, into Glissade, and then tier 3 add-on, and then we go boom. See all of those debuffs? And then now you can do Mark Bloom into Q, and then here is where you do Uproot into this, into this. That's the Luthagon's Call plus its flow. This plus this. You guys get it? So I'm gonna do it again. RMB, Ensnare, Glissade, then we do the tier 3 add-on, then we do this, then we do Mark Bloom, we Q, we do Shift RMB, and then we do the flow. So normally I do the uproot so that I can cancel the charging, but I just wanted to show you guys the skill that I'm going to use. But I must, or most of the time I usually do the uproot to cancel the charge, right? Or you can also do F to cancel the charge, right? So that's the combo. And the moment I'm done with that entire thing, it doesn't matter what you do next. You just do now filler damage, okay? So boom, 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 boom. And then you can do double tap. Spear Sphere will always be back. Okay, sorry. See what happened there? That's a really good way to explain that now. Okay. Watcher, I had not locked Watcher. And what did I do? I activated Watcher when I wanted to activate Spear of Sylvia. That's where you lock your Watcher and only activate Watcher using your quick slot. Otherwise, you're going to do that mistake where instead of spending it on a skill you wanted it is going to prioritize your buff, and you're going to use the buff when you don't need to use the buff. So I guess that's the best way I could have showed you that mistake. So make sure you don't do that mistake. But other than that, I think that's about it when it comes to combos. I don't know if there's anything else that you guys really need to know about Archer, but that's about it. If you are grinding in low area zones, just press any skill that's off color. That's about it. Archer is king of low AP grinding zone. Make sure you have this unlocked so that you can use Grand Bloom. Find a pack, Grand Bloom. This pack will definitely die, and probably that pack there will die, and maybe that pack there will die. That's the thing about Grand Bloom. Then you go to the next pack, Radiant Explosion. Go to the next pack, Mark Bloom. Go to the next pack, maybe Ruthagon's Call. Go to the next pack, Grand Bloom. The next pack. It's so simple and it's so chill. There's nothing really weird to do. But when it comes to combos, you don't have to follow this combo like very religiously. You can do fancy things like if you want. It flows with anything. That's the best part about Archer. You can like make super cool combos and it looks so good. That's why I love the Archer. It looks super good and it's super clean and it flows beautifully. Yeah, you cannot say that this thing is not fun. Like, come on. Anyway, I hope that helps. That clears out a lot of information. If there's anything I've left out, just ask me in the comments and I'll probably answer them now. But I think that's about it for the guide for PvE. Thanks guys for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel if you like this content. Probably make guides for other classes that I think I know, but it depends on how good this video does. So thanks guys for watching, and I guess I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks, peace.